Okay. We have the feature testing working group, December 11th, 2024. As we talked about last week on the agenda, we are going bottom up. And then I've been trying to clean up the or update the agenda every after this meeting so that we don't have a lot of extra stuff that we don't need to cover in the meeting there. So I have the first point, which is around the actually leftover from last week, the remaining work and assignment of DRIs. I am wondering if we should talk through your MR, Natalia, in relation to this point. Just because, like, some of the things on here, I guess, well, here we can actually, let's just go through these each individually, and I will ask you if this is still something um, we need to explore and determine a solution for within your POC. Does that make sense? Okay. So data management, and when I'm saying data management here, I'm referring to uh, with the old way of doing things. We have the way in Ruby to generate a um, to generate any piece of data, and I'm not too familiar with, like, Javier or Desiree actually. Maybe you both, maybe one of you kind of understand what happens behind the scenes there. Um, are we actually creating data when we in Rails um, do, like, whatever the object is and create it there? Like, how is state managed there, and what is the process that happens there? And then do we have to figure out, for you, Natalia, do we have to figure out a similar way of doing that in the Playwright version?
I'll answer first. We don't have to figure it out because we're using the same RSpec infrastructure that we used. It's not Capybara specific, it's RSpec specific things. And for populating data, I think Javiera or Desiree can answer better, but we basically using helpers we are reusing helpers we defined that are Rails helpers, not even specifically RSpec, and that populate our database when the tests are running. But fix me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, and also we have some fixtures that we use in the RSpec suite. So I think that will be transparent. It's something that we can still use with Playwright.
Okay, so then data management is solved. This is not something that we need a DRI for. Cool. Awesome. So, all right, authentication. Is there anything we have to do to create a fake user and have it um, auth with different state and different permissions?
Also handled, we have user signing as a Rails helper. So we at least have the same things we had for Capybara, signed in and not signed in state. Not sure about permissions. Don't remember if we had it separately, but I'm sure we can add kind of admin user and non-admin user.
Cool. So we should be good there too. We just may need to follow up on minor things, minor tweaks. Cool. All right. How does this work in CI/CD? Um, so this is not like we don't need to run the node server or anything. This is all handled um, in the Playwright Ruby gem.
Yes, but there is one problem that basically goes for both CI/CD and environment setup, the shared one. We will need to run the test server. Capybara runs its own one that we're accessing. For now, in my setup, I'm running the test server manually, just locally with a command. It should be set up on the CI/CD. Next, we need to run the test server ourselves.
Okay. Javiera, how familiar? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question about the topology. So for the, I see that there is a diagram here in the gem, the playwright Ruby client gem. So I wonder if we plan to have this WebSocket communication between these two, the server that we want to have for playwright, dedicated for playwright. Is that correct? Is that the topology that we want to have in the CI/CD pipelines, right?
Yes, yes. Basically, we just need to ensure that there is a test server running, and Playwright Gem doesn't do it automatically, just like Capybara does under the hood. I don't think it's a big deal because it's basically the same thing that Capybara does, just additional Rails server with a different port that we have. But someone will have to do the setup for that.
Yeah. So I guess that if we want to, if we plan to remove this flackiness for some of these tests, and if we want to see those pipelines in green passing for those flaky tests, we will need this server first. Okay, cool.
Yes.
So we need to be sure that the tests that we want to fix, they are locally replicable, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thank you.
How familiar are you with our pipelines setup, Javiera? Like, can you own this part, getting the server? And we might have to work with infra a bit on how to do that in production. But yeah, can you own that part?
That will be definitely challenging. But if we don't have a DRI right now, maybe I can help with it. Maybe I can try to reach someone who has experience setting this up or spinning up a server in some of the. I guess that we will need a step in the CI pipelines, but in terms of provisioning, then I will need some help to understand how we can do it.
Okay. And I can well, let's work together on finding the right person to help. I'm assuming someone on the infra team would probably be best to kind of assist with that. So we can, yeah, we can try to find someone that can help us with that. But I'm
Yeah.
going to put you down as the DRI for now, just on gathering all of the information that we and work that we need to do in order to get it working.
Yeah, I think that if we have someone from who knows how to provision this faster, that will be better for us to start like trying this in the CI/CD pipelines.
Find someone. Okay, cool. And then that should be, Natalia, you said probably C and D, CI/CD and environment setup should be the same.
Yes, because we will be running basically the same RSpec pipelines. In the tests that we added, nothing like they wrapped in RSpec. They just tagged with Playwright, and that's about it. So we should use the same jobs basically.
Okay, awesome. All right. Is there anything else we should split into separate like block of work for this working group that we can assign a DRI to?
No, I think we have it pretty well covered. And the main part, basically the main parts of work will be setting up CI, so spinning up the server so we could test, and the actual attempts of rewriting the test into the Playwright syntax and adding them so the pipeline could be run.
Cool. Okay, awesome. Let's move on to 4. move backwards to 4. So the baseline metrics that we were discussing in the issue that's linked here, I listed out the ones that you suggested. This is continuing the conversation we started last week around how do we want to determine if this is, like, if Playwright is not better, but if there's a different, like, if we're, what are we looking to optimize by switching off of Capybara, and determining what those baseline metrics are going to be. So yeah, listed off the 3 that you mentioned, which was reducing flakiness, reducing time to run the specs, and debuggability. How does that sound to everyone else as kind of the things we want to measure using the old way, and then get a baseline that way and measure after we're done with actually getting the Playwright in there, measuring it on the Playwright side to compare the 2.
It sounds good to me. I don't think that we will have something like a threshold to measure this. If we see an improvement, then we will declare that as a win, right?
Yeah. So let's continue the conversation in that issue, async. I haven't checked today if there was any feedback on the thread inside of that issue, but I just had some questions on whether we test some of this stuff today, mainly around, like, how do we determine if a test is flaky or not? Is there like a threshold that we hit where it's failing this amount of times, so we're going to quarantine it and mark it as being flaky? So I don't know if we have the answers to that yet, but if not, I will see if I can find those answers. Okay. 3 is just an FYI around the MR, around what we talked last week about focusing on replacing Capybara instead of using both Capybara and Playwright. I think, yeah. All right, 2. You want to show your branch that you have? It's surprisingly small, the diff.
Yes, I shared because it's the Renault test. It's only a setup, and you still will need to run the server, so it's a very minimal one. And don't look at the commit and don't look at the code. I know it's ugly. The only point is to basically show the gem, right, and the Playwright installation, how we are doing it, and how we are taking the tests. And with the next step, I will probably just spin off this test into something viable from one of the specs that we determined in point 1, but that's back to Donald.
Okay, cool. Just one question on that. Should we can run the branch on that MR? Should that be the branch, essentially the working group branch that we all work off of? And if so, can we run the pipelines that we run against master off of that branch fairly easily? Like, can we get the branch to be as close to master and the CI/CDs associated with master on your branch there?
Yeah, I think so. We should start somewhere. I will need to rebase it though. It's older.
Okay. Can you do that this week? Rebase it, and then we'll
Right
kind
after
of
the
freeze
meeting.
it at that point. Awesome. Will rebase. Okay, cool. So then, yeah, let's go to the number 1 on the agenda, the flaky test we want to use. You listed off some candidates for plan, which is great. Javier listed off some examples from create, which is also great. Are those, should we pick one or
At least three.
ones?
I
Three
would
of
say
them?
at least three. I think like basing on the one, it's not enough to measure, and at least three. For plan, that will be definitely boards, that's for sure. That's the main pain that we have. And most likely the drawer specs, because that's the most recent one. That's the Epic, it's called Epic Sidebar, whatever. But it's basically our new drawer, and this drawer is to be used literally everywhere on the work items. So to me, it looks like it's important to measure and see how we can fix this one.
Okay. Do you have a top one for create, Javiera?
Yeah, there are a few that I have. I think that there is one that is already in progress, and that is the one that is affecting us the most. But I think I have another one. The one for, I think it was the Comet Spec RB. It has 10 reports, so maybe we can start with that one instead of the most popular one, because that is already assigned to someone. So we can start with that one.
Okay. Sorry, which one did you say that one? The commit spec?
Commit spec, yeah. It's about the Git at HTTP controller spec in the list.
Okay. Cool. At this meeting, I will link to the actual files in the agenda, so we have them listed there. But for now, let's use those three. So boards, Epic Drawer, commit spec, as the ones we're going to test, both use as our testing or our example specs for this. Cool. Okay. So then action items for this week are to start looking and finding context for the CI/CD configuration, and then can we start implementing these tests in Natalia's branch?
Yeah, we can do it in the meantime. That's basically parallel chunks of work. They are independent.
Okay. You gonna run with that or start with that? I don't know how your capacity looks like this week.
Actually, perfect. I just shipped the feature that you needed so much. So
That I did?
yes,
Oh,
drawer.
okay.
So
Awesome.
so I have 2 weeks, like this is the next one before Christmas without deliverables, so I can work on this one.
Cool. Okay. I think that is all then. I think we have stuff to action on this week, which is good, and we can see where we're at next week. Anyone have anything else?
Yep, sounds good. Thank you.
Cool. We'll cut out early then. All right. Thanks all. See you next week.
See you next
Thank
week.
you.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.